Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jerich Show. I, as always, am Javvad Malik, and this week we've got a great show talking about the Germans, talking about the Facebook, and talking about the ISC squared. All that and more coming up on this week's.
Welcome to the Jerich Show, featuring your hosts Javvad Malik and Erich Krohn. Timely topics, poorly presented.
And Erich Krohn, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful, Javvad. And I want to thank you for not adding to my blood pressure issues by showing up 2 minutes before going live. But at least this week you actually started going live when we started talking. So we're ahead this week compared to what we were last week. So everyone, welcome to the show and the madness and mayhem that is. You realize we're in we're episode 81, Javvad. You would think we would know what we're doing by now.
I know what I'm doing. I just enjoy raising your blood pressure. Apparently, your wife's agreed to go halves with me on the life insurance if we can make it happen this year. So,
oh, that's nice. Well, hey, speaking of which, I had something else happen this week that always raises my blood pressure, and that is I'm minding my own business. And my wife sends me a text message and says, "Uh-oh, look what just arrived." Whenever I get a package that starts off like this, Mr. Erich Krohn, disciple of Javvad, it scares me. It worries me. It concerns me.
You. It shouldn't worry you. It's perfectly fine. So people don't know this, but you have been having some issues with your feet for a number of years. And bone spurs and everything, and you have some surgery scheduled very soon.
Yeah. So I've had my left Achilles done twice. Now they have to do my right Achilles, and so what I want to do though, Javvad, is I'm going to open this. This is an unopened Amazon package. Now, if y'all know the things that Javvad and I have sent to each other, you would know why this is such a terrifying prospect to open this on air. Now, the good news is this one came from Amazon.
It's perfectly fine. So what it is, listen, when you have Achilles surgery, you'll have trouble getting around. And early, about 2.5 years ago, I got you those Heelys roller skates that I thought would help you get around quickly, and you never used those. So I thought I went the other way this time, say, Eric's not going to be very mobile. He's not going to be getting around. So this will help you when you're not getting around after surgery. That's all I'm going to say about that.
So just for the record, everyone, those little electric Heelys that we had almost killed Perry Carpenter, the very wise and smart friend of the show, Perry Carpenter. He tried them in the office at work and nearly died. So I decided that it's probably better if I didn't do that. But okay, so we're going to open this thing up and see what it is Javvad has done to... Yeah, so thanks, Javvad. Thanks for thinking of me, Javvad.
I thought you'd have trouble getting from your bed to the toilet, or when you're out in the car and nature calls at your age.
Hey, we got a road trip this weekend. We're going out of town for some kids' sports stuff. I could test it in the car and see if it works for road trips. That's brilliant. Do you remember way back? I don't know if you remember the story, but there was that astronaut who was romantically nudged by somebody, and they did a cross-country drive wearing the diapers that they wear in space. If you remember that. Oh, thanks, James. Yeah, James McQuiggan here, everyone. It's the thought that counts. Yeah, thanks, James. Appreciate that. Yeah. But yeah, they ended up, I don't remember if it was a guy or a gal, but they ended up driving cross country in record time because they wore a freaking diaper and just let it go while they were doing that. So this at least would be much neater and probably a lot easier. Do you remember Dumb and Dumber too?
Yes.
Where they get pulled over. Yeah, right. So, when you're making good time, that's kind of a real thing, I suppose, right?
It is. So, like I said, you're welcome. Let's get to the show.
All right, let's get to the show. All right. Have you read these? Because I haven't read these.
The German government warns against using Kaspersky because they are saying that it's unknown if they are influenced by the government or not. And, this is one of those stories that, when I first read it, it's sort of like you can understand where they're coming from a political point of view. That everything in Russia, many things could be compromised, if not cooperatively, then by force. And there's all that issue. But on the other hand, you see all of these organizations being negatively impacted. You have so many employees working in Russia for, like, say, multinational organizations, and all of a sudden they're unemployed. They don't have a job anymore. And this is in the same vein. It's through no fault of their own. I mean, like, the Russian people generally, lovely people, just like any other human beings on the planet. It's just like collateral damage. So I do feel a bit sad for them. And Kaspersky, they've been under obviously a lot of scrutiny for many years. Like, the U.S. government doesn't allow them in their installations and stuff. But I mean, to their credit, I mean, they have been. They have been pretty open. They offer their software up for review. They code review and everything. So, I just think it's just that political thing that's overshadowed any technical sort of concerns that there might actually be.
Well, let's be honest. The threat is real that the Russian government could put pressure on them. Just like it's some of the Chinese products, right? Like we saw this with the TikTok deal and all that. The idea of the government could be able to come in and say, if you don't want to go to prison and you want to continue working, you're going to do these things, okay? And it would be very hard for them to do anything about it. And I get that. That is a risk, okay? We're all about risk in cyber and in info security, right? But that is definitely a risk. And I can see where there would be some concerns. But to this point, there's never that I know of been a credible issue with any of the Kaspersky software. Okay. Now let's flip over. Let's look at McAfee. Let's look at John McAfee. Now, he hasn't been involved for a while, but what's your biggest threat? John McAfee when he was, before he passed away, or Kaspersky, right? Anyways, I see where they're coming from, and having worked for the government in the DoD, I understand the threat with that, because if they did get a hold of it, think about the install base that they have and what you could do with a simple antivirus definition update that ignored things, or you know what I mean? Like there's ways that this could be used. So it's something to consider if you're running it. It doesn't mean like go and delete everything right away, but it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, it is. And I think, like, in light of what you said, like, antivirus works at highest privilege access. It's like any security software, they run high. And taking a cue from the SolarWinds compromise, I think it's prudent that governments should actually be more, enforce more scrutiny over what software they do allow into their installations, and for what purposes. But I think that should be a broader statement. It shouldn't just be because you're Russian, we're kicking you out, because this could happen to anyone.
Well, all antivirus basically like spends the weekends at the bar with the colonel, right? Like they're so close. You're right. It is like the highest level, like ring zero type ish. I don't know if it's really ring zero, but extremely high permissions, because you don't want the virus to be able to get in underneath the antivirus, right? It's built like that for a purpose. But if used not for good, this could be very, very bad.
That's right. And I just noticed we have some acoustic background music options now available on our platform.
Do we?
So I don't know if you can hear it. Let me just pump it up a bit.
Oh, get a little bit. Oh, that's very soothing.
That's pretty cool. So now I can use these to drown you out instead of completely cutting you off.
You know what we could do? We need to come up with some audio options, like sound that we play whenever we talked about cryptocurrency, like something about lies and fakery or something. And we should do that. We should start doing musical scores with our different segments.
That would involve being even more organized than we already are.
Yeah. And you pop this up, and I'm the first thing that came to mind is that the audio clip of the goat screaming sort of thing. Ah! It's meta, right? Yeah.
But yeah, so surprise, surprise, the company formerly known as Facebook, aka Meta, is hit with 18.6 million GDPR fine over 12 data breaches in 2018, so 4 years ago.
This is like a nice lunch for the executives there, man. I mean, what if you look at what they make? What is an $18 million fine? Dude, that's like a speeding ticket to me and you, maybe less.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you can either get better, or you can it's just more convenient to just pay the fines whenever they occur, if they occur.
Well, this is 4 years old, so it's taken 4 years to get to the point that they're fining, right? That's a long time dragged out. How much difference do you really think? So you're over there in the EU. How much difference do you really think GDPR has made with organizations of this size compared to the smaller ones that now have to jump through a lot of these hoops to try to meet this, where it's extremely smaller or extremely tough for the smaller medium businesses?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. And for companies this size, they are just like humongous. They have far more resources than the regulators have. They have far more skills, like the people they hire, the money they have, and everything. So it's really hard. I mean, obviously, in some ways, I think it's kind of like not done anything in the regard that people feel like, oh, we found the breach, we find them, look, 10 million, 20 million, we've done our job, good job, everybody, and nothing changes.
Yeah.
See, the point isn't that the fine. The point should be to how do we change the behaviors, or how do we change the culture within these organizations? And I think from that perspective, when you look at these large companies, nothing's really changed.
Yeah, and it concerns me. I mean, as an American and a capitalist swine, we see these mega companies like Meta. Meta has gotten so big. Amazon, so freaking big, right? Was it Amazon that just bought MGM Studios, I think? Right?
Yes.
Like the movie studio.
Yeah.
Amazon, the people that started by shipping books, now owns the MGM Studios thing, right? So how much stuff does Amazon own across the board, right? They're so big and in so many areas. You throw an $18 million fine at somebody here, and this is nothing. It's not going to slow them down. They don't care. It's not going to matter at all. And again, where my heart goes out to is those small and medium-sized businesses that still have to make their stuff work under these rules that are doing nothing against the ones that are going to lose the big data on you. I mean, a dentist's office gets breached. What do they got? They got my fillings and maybe some other information. But you start breaching Meta that has basically everywhere I've ever been, every ad I've ever looked at, everyone I know, all that stuff. And they just go, okay, whatever. So yeah. Might be a little riled up about this one.
I've mentioned this series of articles before. They're from 2019. But Kashmir Hill, the journalist, she wrote the series of articles. So it starts here. I tried to block Amazon from my life. It was impossible. I cut Facebook out of my life. Surprisingly, I missed it. I cut Google out of my life. It screwed up everything. I cut Microsoft out of my life. So I thought so. I cut Apple out. It was devastating. And then I cut the big five out from my life. It was hell. And it just goes to show, I mean, it's such a good series because it just
Is she a sadist? Did she not learn from the first 2 times that this is just going to hurt?
I just think it's such good insight into how deep the roots of just a few companies go into all of our lives. And yeah, we're off on a tangent now, but
tangents are okay. It's all right. It's Friday, man. We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
No, it is surprising though how much of our lives have come around to social media, and and how deep of an influence these things have on what we do in our day-to-day lives. Now, I'm not one that takes a picture of every meal and posts it and, ooh, look at this, look at that. I don't do selfies often, that's just not me. But I use it to keep in touch with my family and my friends, people that I work with, that I know.
Sorry, you were saying. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay, and we have a story here from one of your former employers. Cybersecurity certification overall brings new questions and longer exams because that's what everyone wants. So when you do your CISSP, starting from the 1st of June, you'll have an extra hour, I believe, and there will be 50. No, before there were 25, but now there are 50 of those dummy questions that don't add anything to your score. So they probably wait they for better research. And it's what do you make of this, Eric? You've been behind the curtain.
There are reasons for having those dummy questions. Okay. And I get it. You need a large pool of questions that you continuously churn through in order to keep people from doing brain dumps and stuff. And to their credit, something ISC Squared has done really good is they've, I don't want to say eliminated, but for the most part, seriously reduced the amount of brain dumps and how long they would ever be useful for. Okay. We both have CISSPs. I don't know if you remember after your test, but my brain was done. So there was no dumping from that. But you compare it to some of the other ones, unfortunately, like EC Council stuff. Those brain dumps are all over the place. And they're, word for word, the questions and answers. So they have this big pool that they run through. And part of the process is making sure that these have not been written. These questions have not been written in a way that that people get confused by them. And there's the old thing where people thought that they did double negatives and all this stuff to mess with people. Now, I've been an item writer for the CISSP. Okay. So I used to write questions for the CISSP even before I worked for them.
You're evil.
I know. I know. Sometimes you walk away and you're like, oh, that's going to hurt. But anyways, but honestly, the process for that, we got together in a room with people from seriously all over the globe. They'd say, we need some questions in here. And so we would come up with some questions and then everyone would review them. They would shred them in front of you. Thank you. They would shred them in front of you, make you feel stupid. You go slump back and fix the questions. Okay. And then you come back and you present it to the group again. There's a lot of effort that goes behind those questions to make sure that the thing that I write here isn't just an American centric view, or it makes sense in Europe and, all of these things. So there is a lot of effort in that. But the other step is, again, making sure that the questions don't just arbitrarily mess with people. So if you have, 80% of the people that pass the CISSP answer this question wrong, there's something inherently wrong with that question. So that's what that's what they're looking for when they do these dummy questions. Now, when they rolled out this adaptive testing, the whole idea was people are exposed to less of the questions, because if you ace a certain area soon, you can end that. Okay. You don't have to go through 35 questions on the same domain. If you hit the hardest one first, you're like, okay, good. So your test was actually supposed to be faster. Now, Javad, when you took yours, I think you were like me, pen and paper, or pencil and paper, number 2, pencil and paper, right?
Yep.
It was hours of sitting in that stupid room, like, scribbling stuff down, and it was a pain. And so this was the whole idea was it can make it shorter. You could be in and out in an hour if you really know your stuff. Cool. Only now they're like, hey, let's add another hour by tossing a bunch more questions that mean nothing and exhaust your brain while we're doing this. And so I don't know. I have mixed emotions on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it pains me to say it, but you add a lot of good insight into that, and it's easy to be dismissive for someone like me that's never written exam questions as to like, these questions are rubbish. Why are they doing this? Why can't they just do this? And what have you. But it's true. It is a challenge. I think though, and this is where I some of my frustrations with ISC Squared lie and how they communicate stuff is people are jumping on this story. Now, I don't know whether that was just a press release that IC² put out and say, from June, we're going to be increasing the length and increasing dummy questions. I find that hard to believe. I would assume there's more to it, but people ignored it. Or maybe that was all they put out. And that's a dumb move as well. I know you need to communicate changes, but this has always been the problem. I receive emails from IC², and I love a lot of the people that work there, but they're just so hard to understand. I don't know what they want from me, other than you owe us AMFs. But
well, I got to kind of wonder: is the test more expensive now because the seat time is higher? Right, because you have to pay for seat time in these places when people take tests.
Yeah.
Because you're taking up their machines in these testing centers. And so I kind of wonder if there's going to be and the cost of the exam is now up to, well, don't ask. We'll just, we'll do a second mortgage or get you financing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But you know what? After all these years, I still remember lighting must be, at least 2 foot candles on exterior perimeter walls up to 8 feet high.
Yeah, right. Well, it's where I learned what a Jersey barrier was actually called, right? And so certification, it's this whole other thing that's interesting in our area. Maybe we should do a special on certification sometime, Javad, because there's a lot about it that people don't understand. There's value to it. There's things that are just blown out of proportion. And if there's one thing that makes me mad,
it doesn't matter what makes you mad. We are not interested in hearing what makes Erich Krohn mad or madder than he already is. So I think that's about all we've got time for. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you very much for your wonderful comments. Stick around for us next week.